So first, I wanted to start talking about the music. I feel like the soundtrack for Arcane is such an integral part of the show's identity, and I love how seamlessly it integrates with the visual elements of each scene. So I wanted to know, first of all, if any of the 20 original songs that you guys had in season 2 stood out as your favorite, and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's a lot of them. I don't know. Do you have a favorite one?
As a French guy, I will pick Stromae.
As a lesbian, I will pick Fantastic.
What do I choose?
But you can't choose between your children.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's so many great songs. I don't know. It's impossible for me. It kind of depends. I rotate, and one time. I mean, there's really impactful ones. I honestly couldn't pick one. It was really fun. It was really fun to work on. The music team really did something special. It's crazy to think about how deep we went on every individual cue, I can't pick one, but I'm very proud of what the team has done. The volume of music was staggering.
And also the chance we had on season 2 was to have the music earlier in the process. So, this integration with the visual was also because of that. We were lucky enough which is quite rare in this industry, to have the music earlier in the process. So that's where all the artists and the animators could be inspired by the actual music that's going to be at the end in the show while they were doing their art.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Usually my favorite song from the season is the one with Powder and Ekko's dance. But yesterday it was Heavy is the Crown. So, you switch depending on your mood, I guess. Yeah. Talking about that particular scene, I bet you guys know that a lot of fans agree that was one of the most epic scenes in season 2. So I wanted to ask Christian, what was it like working with Stromae and Poem with such an epic song?
Honestly, I think what's so interesting about some of these very impactful songs and moments in general is that there's not a single one that was easy. There was so much plays into it. I mean, even just getting to a place where you have the right relationship with the artists, I think we were very lucky. We started talking to Stromae and, his team, that they were very involved. You only really, the lyrics are really, really, really special. And, Poem as well, you only get that when the artist really cares and really listens to, hey, here's what the story's about, here's what the moment is about. We're very lucky for both, with both Stromae, but, his brother also, Luc was really someone that also made it happen in a way, that he really facilitated this creative process. And so that's when the magic happens, But the song was quite different from the initial kind of creative direction of the moment. I don't know if you want to talk about it.
But again, luckily enough, we had this music early enough for the artist to be inspired by that actual music. For instance, the way the two characters dance is inspired by the music, and we very quickly decided that they shouldn't dance like professional. They should look authentic and like teenagers. So being able to have this song again earlier in the process was very fun to play with, and we can as an animator shoot some reference where we're dancing in a dorky way, and that felt right, for the so yeah, that's why again we had so much fun working on with that song. Yeah,
it was special. It wasn't easy. I mean, it was when the scene is going to be important, and then you have to make something great. It's well, okay, how do you plan that? Great creative kind of just happens. And so it's really, really hard, but sometimes you're lucky. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amanda, I do have to ask, now that we're talking about this scene, about their relationship, right? are the romantic feelings between Powder and Ekko only exist in this alternate universe, or is that romance something that exists in the Jinx that we already know?
I think what we tried to do in this episode was stay true to who the character was from the start. And we always tried to put a little bit of Jinx in Powder and a little bit of Powder in Jinx, because they are the same person. They're just shaped by different circumstances. So, I think we asked ourselves, what would Powder look like if she had like a healthy support system around her when she faced the trauma of losing her sister, to help her through that? Well, she would still express it the same way. She would still express, like, she still makes the little doll of Vi, but the way that manifests in her psyche, looked differently. So I do think that there is crossover between the realities because they're the same person. So.
Yeah, I mean, how many people, how many soulmates do not meet each other just because of like they weren't the right circumstances?
Yeah.
You can only imagine, So I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. As a strong shipper of them, I'm glad that that's the answer that you have for me. Now that we're talking about that alternate reality, I do want to talk about Heimerdinger. We know that he sacrifices himself to give Ekko a chance to go back to his reality. However, the way he vanishes leaves the door sort of open for him to just respawn somewhere else, just like your goals do in the game. So is that a possibility that he's not gone, but just somewhere else?
That is a possibility.
Mm-hmm. But he knew what he was doing. Like a sacrifice can't be meaningful in the show if it doesn't have consequences. Yeah. And this definitely he knew what he was doing. There were consequences to his actions there.
Yeah.
That we can't quite fully know yet, I think.
Yeah.
Something else that I wanted to ask is that for me, it was very impactful how the show came full circle with the reveal that the hooded figure that saved Jace and gave him the rune was actually Victor. So I wanted to ask, was this always part of the plan, or were there other versions that you explored in that backstory?
I mean, there's a lot of versions. I think pretty early on, there was a line that kind of landed for us among the writers, which was that the only person that can really defeat Victor is Victor. And so there were different expressions of that,
Mm-hmm.
Because Victor gets to a point where his thinking and reasoning is very advanced and very ahead. And so how do you kind of challenge that? I think only like a personal experience can really kind of convince him. So yeah, there were definitely different versions, but we always knew that it kind of had to circle back to that.
So in a previous Clara interview, Christian, you did mention that Arcane was sort of a first step for everything that you guys want to do with the lore of League of Legends. Is there anything that you can tease about other potential stories that you guys want to explore?
That's tough. Whatever we say will be set in stone and engraved into our graves. Yeah, honestly, can't really say much yet. We're still, right now we're really just investing in like people that we're inspired to see realize their visions and explore their ideas. Look, the League IP has a lot to offer. There's a lot of cool characters, and we all have kind of like different, like favorites. There are many where I'm like, oh, I want to see a, story or TV show or movie about this character, but who's going to make it, And so then the question is like, can we find the right person? And that you just need to try stuff. You talk to people. You meet new writers. You meet new, artists. And so, yeah, we're still kind of in that phase. And there's I'm really, really excited about the things we're exploring. But yeah, too early to commit to anything because our audience cares and they would never let us forget about any promises.
That's true. So, Amanda, something that I wanted to ask you is, first I have to say that one of the most fascinating things to me about Arcane is how complex the world building is. And while there's a lot of existing lore in League of Legends, what was your favorite show original addition to the mythos?
I think the most personal thing to me is just Caitlyn's parents, because we didn't know who or what they were, and we got to make them real, and we got to talk about their design and what Caitlyn's mother did, and that, you know, what happens to her mother and who her journey is so part of Caitlyn's journey. And just the fact that we were like, oh, this is a fantasy world where magic defines the power structure. What if Caitlyn's family is matrilineal? And it's like, oh, now that is. And you look at the paintings on the wall that these people did, and it's just all women. And so, you know, that to me, just imagining a different power structure than the one we live in every day, you know, is something that I'll always want to play in, like a world I'll always want to play in. So.
Yeah, but also, it doesn't stand out.
Yeah.
It just, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's nice about it.
It's just what, like, everything we did with the world building is just like, oh, let's just make it different. And then that's the fabric of the show. But that's not what the story is about. It's just, you know, part of what the story is.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned Caitlyn's parents, because I did want to ask you, Bart, about one particular scene that really struck a chord with me. And it's the one at the funeral of Caitlyn's mother. I recently read that it was hand-drawn with charcoal and then combined with the 3D elements, which to me is just mind-blowing. So I did wanted to ask, how was the process of making that scene, and how do you guys come up with that approach for that particular moment?
Well, since you know, we spent we had spent, by the time we were doing season 2, already quite some times on the show. We quickly decide to try out some other visual experience here and there, you know, and whenever that would make sense. And obviously that funeral scene made sense to explore something new. So we had our art director, Julien Georgel, who came up with that charcoal idea and did himself the drawings. And so you're right, the real charcoal drawings where we added 3D characters and again, I think to going back to the music also helped a lot. The drama of that sequence, you know, it's always I mean, talking about griefs, it's always hard. So you want to be as subtle and authentic as possible, and I think this visual helped that.
We talked a lot about how Caitlyn should feel, right?
Yeah,
like how like the world around her is kind of slowing down. It's kind of lifeless. That's why it's kind of like, you know, I think that's why charcoal drawings, like, they have that quality of like things are a bit less defined, and the life's kind of sucked out of the environment, and only Caitlyn and Vi are really, you know, moving. I think that's what started the conversation. I think it kind of led to this expression.
Well, guys, my time with you is now over, unfortunately, but thank you so much for your thoughtful answers, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.